She watched them laugh as they pushed their plates away, like her food carried disease. But it wasn't their cruelty that broke her, it was the silence from the man whose child once called her Mama. "Hi, my beautiful family. Thank you for sticking around with me through our trying times. I really appreciate your love and support. We're finally back again to give you many more beautiful stories. If you're already hooked in for today's story and ready to enjoy it, click subscribe and let me know in the comments where you're watching from, because tomorrow I will be giving you another story just as interesting as this one, and you don't want to miss it. Now let us begin. The clatter of crystal glasses echoed through the Whitmore estate's marble halls. Outside, luxury cars gleamed beneath moonlight, and inside, money spoke fluently in laughter. Tailored suits and veiled insults passed off as charm. Clara moved silently between guests, setting the final touches on the 12-seat dining table. Her hands were steady from decades of service, her eyes sharp from learning how to disappear. She wore the maid's uniform, black with white trim, but it was her own faded sneakers beneath the hem that told the truth. She'd walked these floors for 20 years, yet she might as well have been wallpaper. "Clara, please make sure the soufflé is out exactly 7 minutes after the starter," Mr. Whitmore said, not looking up from his wine. He never called her anything else, just Clara, not Miss Clara, not even a thank you. "Yes, sir." The kitchen smelled of roasted herbs, truffle oil, and the quiet pride Clara never spoke of. She tasted everything twice. She cooked like a woman who had no voice, but wanted her love to linger in people's mouths. Meanwhile, upstairs, Lila Whitmore was fighting with a zipper. "Stupid thing," she muttered, twisting in front of the mirror. Her dress, a sleek navy silk number her mother would have approved of, fit like a second skin, too tight, too perfect. She hated perfect. Lila was 17. Her world was curated and planned, boarding school, etiquette classes, Ivy League dreams, but her soul felt loud, raw, untrained. When she finally made it downstairs, the guests had arrived. There was Mr. Haverley, the oil executive who kissed Lila's hand like she was property, Mrs. Langdon, who whispered racist things with a smile, and of course, Senator Green, an old friend of her father's, who treated service staff like props. Lila caught Clara's eye as she served the starters. A small smile passed between them. It was Clara who had held her when her mother died. Clara who made her warm milk and honey toast when Lila couldn't sleep. Clara who once whispered, "You're more than what they expect you to be." But now Clara's eyes held something different, a tiredness Lila couldn't name. From across the room, one of the guests said with a smirk, "I heard the help prepared the meal tonight. Brave." Lila's fork froze halfway to her mouth. The tension was so thick, even the chandeliers seemed to dim. She looked to her father. He chuckled. "Well, she's been with us forever, knows her way around a kitchen." No correction, no defense. Lila felt a flush rise in her cheeks. Clara pretended not to hear, retreating to the kitchen. The storm was building, and no one at that table saw it coming, except the girl with trembling hands and a memory of toast and honey. Dinner had begun. Wine flowed. Laughter rolled out like polished marbles, cold, smooth, hollow. Clara stepped into the room with grace that didn't match the weight in her chest. She carried the main course, pan-seared duck breast glazed with blackberry reduction, served beside wild mushroom risotto and charred asparagus. It was beautiful, it was perfect, and no one touched it. At first Clara thought perhaps they were still drinking, but then came the sideways glances, the upturned noses, the fake smiles paired with lifted napkins and untouched silverware. Mrs. Langdon coughed lightly. "Oh, I do hope it was properly sanitized. You know, these older kitchens." Senator Green chuckled. "I told you, darling, never trust food prepared by someone who can't afford to eat at the table." Mr. Whitmore laughed. Clara's from the South. That soul food magic runs in her veins. The table erupted in chuckles. Lila froze. She looked at Clara, who stood like a statue beside the table, lips pressed so tight the pink had drained from them. Clara gave a tight nod and turned to leave. Lila stood abruptly. "I'm sorry, does no one plan to eat the food?" The room fell silent. Forks clinked lightly as guests exchanged awkward glances. Lila picked up her fork, cut into the duck, and took a slow, deliberate bite. Her eyes fluttered shut. "This is incredible." No one spoke. Then she added, louder, "Clara made this for you, and if you refuse it, it says more about you than her." The silence thickened. Mr. Whitmore's voice cut the tension. "Lila, sit down." But she didn't. She walked to Clara, who stood just at the doorway, one hand shaking ever so slightly. Lila took her hand. "I want to eat with Clara, in the kitchen. If anyone else wants dinner, you're welcome to join us, but I'm not breaking bread with bigots." She didn't yell. She just left, with Clara's hand in hers, and the guests, they had no idea how to swallow what had just been served. When was the last time someone surprised you by doing what was right, no matter the cost? Would you have done the same? Drop your thoughts below. Someone might need to hear your answer. Clara sat at the small kitchen table, her apron folded neatly in her lap. Lila paced across the tiled floor, her heels clicking like thunder in the silence. Neither of them spoke at first. Clara finally broke it. "You shouldn't have done that." Lila stopped mid-step. "What? Stood up for you?" Clara's eyes were calm, but her voice trembled. "It's not about standing up. It's about what they'll say about you now." Lila knelt beside her. "I don't care what they say." Clara gave a sad, weary smile. "You say that now, but your daddy's reputation, your place in this world, it's all tied to people like them." "Then I want no part of this world," Lila whispered. Clara pulled her hands away gently. "Don't be foolish, child. You can't fix people like that, and you can't ruin your life trying." Lila stood again, stung. "So what? Just let them humiliate you." "I've lived with worse," Clara said softly, her eyes distant. Lila turned away, jaw clenched. Maybe that's the problem. In the dining room beyond the swinging kitchen doors, laughter had returned. Shallow, hollow. It cut like glass. Mr. Whitmore hadn't come to check on either of them. Back in the kitchen, Lila opened the cabinet, took out 2 plates, and began serving food in silence. Clara watched her. "Don't you get tired of pretending this is okay?" Lila asked, voice low. Clara didn't answer right away. Then softly, "Every damn day." But the pain wasn't just Clara's now. It had transferred quietly, deeply into Lila, and neither of them quite knew what to do with it. Rain had begun to fall outside the estate, soft at first, then insistent. It tapped on the windows like an impatient truth, waiting to be let in. The dinner party, awkwardly fragmented, had mostly dispersed. Some guests left early, muttering about the unpleasant scene. Others stayed, sipping drinks, too proud to leave but too petty to return to the table. Lila hadn't spoken to her father, neither had Clara, but the storm had forced a logistical inconvenience. The Whitmore's driver had called to say the driveway was flooding. No one was leaving tonight, and so Clara and Lila found themselves in the kitchen, alone again, but this time with nowhere to escape. Lila sat cross-legged on the counter, eating risotto out of a bowl with a spoon. Clara stood across from her, arms folded. "Funny," Lila said, gesturing toward the door. "They ate worse food at my Sweet 16 and begged for the recipe." Clara didn't laugh, but she didn't leave either. The hum of the fridge and the rain's rhythm were their only company. Finally, Clara broke the quiet. "You ever wonder how I ended up here?" Lila blinked. "Every day, but you never talk about it, because stories like mine aren't welcome in houses like this." Lila slid off the counter and sat across from her at the table. "Well, I'm asking now." Clara looked away as if bracing herself. "You really want to know?" "I do." Clara's eyes met hers, and in that gaze, something unspoken passed between them, the invitation to go deeper. Outside, thunder rolled, but in that little kitchen where meals had been served, tears had been hidden, and love had been quietly passed like recipes, something far more powerful was beginning to boil. Clara's fingers tapped the edge of her teacup, slow, rhythmic, almost like a heartbeat, trying to stay calm. "I was 19 when I first stepped into a kitchen that wasn't mine," she began. Lila leaned forward, quiet, listening. "I grew up in Monroe, Louisiana. Dirt roads. My mama cleaned white folks' houses. I swore I'd never do what she did. I wanted to be a teacher. I loved books, used to read to my little brother under the porch light." She paused. Lila didn't interrupt. But one night, my brother Elias, he got stopped walking home from school, said he looked like someone who'd stolen a radio. They beat him so bad he never talked right again. Lila's eyes filled with tears. Clara didn't look at her. That's when I stopped dreaming, started working. Any job I could get. Cleaning houses, scrubbing floors, cooking. I was good at it. And one day, a woman named Whitmore said I had a touch like it was magic. "She's my mom," Lila said softly. Clara nodded. She was kind. Called me Clara, not the help. She used to say, "This house isn't right unless Clara's laughing." Her voice caught. I was with her when she died, you know. Held her hand. Told her I'd look after you. Lila reached across the table, gently placing her hand over Clara's. "I always wondered why you stayed after she passed," Lila whispered. Clara looked down at their hands. "Because I made her a promise, and because you," she paused, voice trembling, "you were the first person who ever called me family without being ashamed." A tear slipped down Lila's cheek. "You are my family, Clara." And in that moment, the distance of generations, race, class, melted into something more honest than blood. Love chosen, love remembered, love that had waited too long to be said aloud. Later that night, the rain softened, and the Whitmore estate felt quieter than it had in years. The guests were gone. The kitchen lights glowed warm, casting gentle shadows across the tiled floor. Clara stood at the stove, pouring milk into a pot. Lila raised an eyebrow. "What are you doing?" Clara smiled. "Just a little. Making something for you. The way I used to." Lila's eyes lit up. "Wait, milk and honey toast?" Clara nodded. "Thought it might settle you." A few minutes later, they sat side by side at the table. No fancy dinnerware, just chipped mugs and mismatched plates. Lila bit into the toast and closed her eyes. "It tastes like safety," she whispered. Clara chuckled. "You used to cry when it got soggy. You used to blow on it like I was 5. You were 5. They both laughed then, truly laughed for the first time that night. The kind of laugh that shakes loose the pain in your chest. Lila looked at Clara, more serious now. "Why didn't you ever tell me your story?" Clara looked at her hands. "Because I didn't want to be a burden, and because I didn't think it mattered." Lila's voice was soft but fierce. "It matters to me. You matter to me." A quiet passed between them, not the awkward kind, but the sacred kind, like the pause after a prayer. Then Clara said, "When your mama died, I was scared you'd forget me, that I'd just fade into the wallpaper again." Lila shook her head. "You're the only reason this house still feels like home." Clara's eyes glistened. And in that moment, they weren't maid and heiress. They were just two women, connected by years of shared silence, shared grief, and now, finally, shared love. The next morning, the estate was sunlit and still. The storm had passed, but inside, thunder still waited. Clara was wiping down the kitchen counters when Mr. Whitmore walked in. He didn't look at her, just grabbed a mug, poured his coffee and sighed like the world owed him something. "Where's Lila?" he asked. "Still asleep, I think," Clara said quietly. He took a sip. "I had to smooth things over with Senator Green this morning. He's considering pulling his endorsement." Clara turned, dish towel frozen in her hand. "She defended me," Clara said. He looked up, annoyed. "Yes," loudly, emotionally, and foolishly. Clara stepped forward, something in her chest snapping. "You let your guests humiliate me in my kitchen, after 20 years of serving your family," he scoffed. "You're not family, Clara. You work here. Don't get it twisted." The words hit like a slap. She didn't cry. She didn't shout. She simply said, "I raised your daughter." He shrugged. "That doesn't make you her mother." Behind them, Lila stood in the hallway, frozen. She had come down just in time to hear it. Clara saw her and froze. Lila's face fell, but it wasn't anger in her eyes. It was betrayal. "I heard you," she whispered. "You told me I mattered to you." "I meant it," Clara breathed. "Then why are you still letting him talk to you like this?" Mr. Whitmore stepped in. "Lila, don't start." "No," she cut him off. "You treat her like she's disposable, like she hasn't given you half your life." "Enough," he said sharply. "She is the help." Lila looked at Clara, waiting. waiting for Clara to stand up to say it out loud, to claim her place. But Clara didn't. She just looked away, and that silence broke something deep in both of them. Lila walked away. Clara didn't follow, and the kitchen, once filled with warmth, suddenly felt colder than it ever had. Clara sat alone in her room, small, quiet, and tucked behind the servants' hallway. The walls were bare, except for a faded photo of a little girl holding a spatula with jam on her nose. Lila, age 6. Her knees ached from standing all night, but the ache in her chest was sharper. "You're not family. She is the help." The words echoed like sirens in a canyon. Clara clutched a worn letter from her late mother, folded edges, ink faded, just one line underlined. "You teach people how to treat you, Clara." She closed her eyes. Downstairs, Lila stood by the front door with her suitcase. Her father hadn't tried to stop her. She was leaving for school, for space, for truth. But something pulled at her. Not her father, not the house, Clara. Her last words to Clara still rang bitter in her mouth. "Then why are you still letting him talk to you like this?" Lila pulled out her phone, typed a message, deleted it, typed again. "If I meant something to you, come tell me, out loud." She didn't send it. Instead, she whispered it into the air, hoping somehow it would find its way to Clara's heart. Meanwhile, Clara reached into her closet, pulled out the recipe book she had written over the years, each dish named after someone she had loved and lost. She hesitated, then turned to a fresh page. Title: Lila's Courage, Bittersweet, Bold, and Braver Than She Knows. She didn't need to be invited to the table anymore. She was bringing her own chair. She rose, folded the book into a cloth pouch, and headed for the stairs. Lila had just stepped outside when she heard the door creak behind her. She turned. Clara stood there, still in her apron, clutching something wrapped in linen. They stared at each other across the stone steps, two souls with too much unsaid, too much at stake. "I almost didn't come," Clara said, voice low. "Thought maybe silence was safer." Lila's eyes welled. "I was hoping you would." Clara stepped closer and held out the cloth bundle. Lila opened it. Inside was a handwritten recipe book, pages worn soft from use. The first page read, "Lila's Courage, Bittersweet, Bold, and Braver Than She Knows." Lila smiled through tears. "You named a dish after me." "I named it after who you are," Clara said, "and who you helped me remember I am." They stood in silence for a long moment. Then Clara continued, "I let your father speak for me too long. I stayed quiet because I thought that was the only way to stay safe." Lila reached for her hand. "But I don't want safe," Clara whispered. "I want home. And I want it with people who see me." "You are my home," Lila said. A long breath escaped Clara's chest, like something heavy had finally been laid down. Lila pulled out her phone and hit record. "Tell me the story again," she said. "Of Elias, of your mama, of everything you've never said out loud." Clara raised an eyebrow. "Now? Yes, I want the world to know. I want to remember." Clara smiled, wide and real. "All right then," she said. "But only if we start with how to make the perfect honey toast." They both laughed, and together under the morning sun they walked back into the house, not as maid and daughter, but as family. Have you ever had someone who felt more like family than blood? What would you say to them if you had the chance right now? Drop your answer in the comments. It might be the message someone else needs today. Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed this story, you will surely love the next one. It's as interesting and even more intriguing as can ever imagine. So do check it out. Click on the image showing on your screen right now to watch the next one.